This is how slavery is still fucking happening today.
I get up at 4:45 in the morning and I don't see a sign of the government anywhere.
Most of us look at slavery as a thing of the past, but slavery is more prevalent in the world today than it's ever been.
Glad to have you, amazing viewer. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you're coming back to watch my videos, so I appreciate you. Thank you for your love and support for my content. So much love, guys. I appreciate all the comments that you're sending to me. I love interacting, and I can't wait to hear from you on this one. Let's dive into today's video. We'll be looking at modern day slavery. These are the things that we interact with on a daily basis, and most of the time we don't really get to see where slavery comes in. So today we'll be discussing on this. We'll be looking at this. If you're new here, I want to remind you that these are a compilation of TikTok videos. So we take trending videos on TikTok and bring them here so that we can look at the burning issues that are happening in our society. So this is comfort for life, and we can't get comfortable unless you get uncomfortable. So we are looking at slavery on all the things that we interact with on a daily basis, and these are on all the sectors. When it goes to educational sectors, work stuff, like every sector, we will have to find slavery included somewhere there. Modern day slavery, when you watch, after you've watched this, you'll realize, wow, this is why I've been struggling. It's making a lot of sense. I don't call you to agree with all that is happening here. If it's something that you can relate with, and you are welcome to even contradict what is being said here. I appreciate that you're spending this time with me. Enjoy the rest.
If you don't think you a slave, I got bad news for you. Here are 5 current issues related to modern day slavery. Number 1, forced labor and supply chains. Now with this, many companies around the world rely on forced labor to produce their goods, right? But often through complex supply chains that make it difficult to trace the origins of where the products came from. Weird. Number 2 is one we all hate, human trafficking. Now, this is the illegal trade of human beings, often for the purpose of being forced for labor or sexual exploitation.
A group of migrants from Mexico has sued a farm in Michigan. So they initially came to the United States legally under what's called an H-2A temporary agricultural program to the state of North Carolina. And after a few weeks where they were working there, they were forced to be placed on a bus and sent to a farm in Michigan, where the organizers gave them false identification and threatened to call immigration on them if they complained. The migrants were forced to work 7 days a week, and they had to sleep on the floor with 30 other migrants, and they were not receiving the pay that they expected to earn while working. They suffered mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. They were able to get the courage to go to a Michigan Immigrant Rights Center, where they have helped to file a lawsuit against the farm, which will ultimately help them get their lawful permanent resident status through labor trafficking.
Now, it is a global problem that affects millions. And Lord knows, don't get me started on number 3. Y'all ready for number 3? Okay, number 3, debt bondage. This is a form of forced labor in which a person is forced to work to pay off a debt, often with little or no pay, under the conditions of coercion and exploitation. Welcome to the United States. Now the 4th is child labor. We all seen what happened to 85K kids. Millions of children around the world are forced to work in dangerous and exploitative conditions, often to support their families.
Looking at a video now, this is so crazy to see.
This is the bottom of the supply chain of your iPhone, of your Tesla, of your Samsung. I mean, I'm just naming those companies. Right. It's all of them, right? All of them. And here's what you need to know, Joe, about this video. This is an industrial cobalt mine where there's not supposed to be one artisanal miner. Now, that's the term used for people who are just digging by hand as opposed to tractors and excavators. There's not supposed to be one here. That's what the story is told at the top of the chain. There's more than 15,000 human beings crammed into that pit, digging by hand. And if you have sound, you hear the mallets, you hear the shouting, you hear the grunts. And that's
so that lets you know child labor, child trafficking, all of that is still going on. And last but not least, domestic servitude, which is a form of forced labor in which a person is forced to work as a domestic servant. Where are we seeing that?
Government, I don't even know who to call right now. So, Ministry of Foreign Affairs or whoever is concerned. Na maembassies za nini, hizi inchi zetu za Uarabuni, Gulf and the likes. I have a question for you. Do you care about the dignity of the imported labor that has come from Kenya to go and work in that place? Huko kwa hizo inchi. Do you care? Because the horror stories I'm listening to right now, this is exactly what modern day slavery looks like.
We can't function on a day-to-day basis without cobalt, and 3/4 of the supply is coming out of the Congo. And it's being mined in appalling, heart-wrenching, dangerous conditions.
Michael, and I'm a 21st century economist. I worked for 25 years at the top of the wealth pyramid. So I work with the largest of the global stock exchanges, the investment houses and banks, and many, many others in terms of endowments and sovereign wealth funds. So I know a lot on this topic, and I know it from a very interesting perspective, which is it is the for-profit private prison industry that is the root of the problem, as Danny points out. So here's some ways to think about it. One, how is that allowed to exist, right? Because of the money. So they're able to give large campaign contributions to our politicians, which we can track through open secrets. I'm going to put all this in the comments. That's one. Two, they're using that labor, not just that labor at pennies a day, but also there is an entire profit motive around all the food that's coming in, all the phone calls that are being made, and even the anklet bracelets, the post-incarceration. So with any for-profit industry, you want to create more of a supply, right? So they're putting these new laws on the book where only 46% of prisoners in 2019 coming in were nonviolent. That means they're getting these petty crimes and building that supply for that for-profit system. So that's one other area that we can address. Also, you have to look at the cost per prisoner on average, and it's much higher in many states like California and New York, is $33,000 per prisoner. That could be spent in diversion programs where the prisoner would benefit, the families would benefit, and our society as a whole would benefit. So these are things that we can address and we will address. So many of the projects that I worked on were about endowments. So college endowments invest in some of the worst projects and companies on the planet: fossil fuels, mining, and prisons. The University of Ohio actually had prisoners working on campus, and the students lost their shit, as they should. So, but that's what it took. It never crossed their mind that this is not good. So that type of labor is not just used on the sides of the roads. It's being used by major corporations in this country to produce goods at pennies. This is something that, again, we can put pressure on not just the companies, but really the college endowments, what the students are great at. We can do it at the local level with politicians, as well as their license to operate, and have more public prisons, right? But what we really need to do is look at alternative diversion programs for some of those nonviolent offenders. As I said, 46% of prisoners coming in 2019 were all for nonviolent offenses. So if we want to put an end, finally, to this modern slavery, as Danny so well articulated there, then we all have to say, we as a people need to do something, because the politicians...
The truth of the matter is, once you become an inspiration, you are a modern day slave.
Have you noticed the people we call rich in the black community are entertainers of white people? Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, was Shaq, Beyonce. Oh, what about these people who are doing Serena and what are they?
Because you become a slave to the people that you inspire. So much that even when it's painful for you, you step out of character. You don't become yourself anymore. You become that which they want to see and to keep being inspired. Being an inspiration makes you become in denial, and it takes longer for you to get out of painful relationships. Let's talk about your days of being an inspiration today and what it took out of you before you could choose yourself.
But look, our position on this is clear. If you arrive here illegally, you will not be able...
I've been seeing all the stitches and all the duets to this, and I'm going to address it really quickly. The modern day slavery system in the UK was created by other illegal immigrants or asylum seekers. I don't know who created it, but it was definitely people that take advantage of other people's misfortunes, and they wait for other illegal immigrants to come into this country to employ them into this modern day slavery system. It's not by the UK government. Rishi Sunak didn't slip up. He highlighted a serious issue that is in this country, that people of their own kind take advantage of their own kind, and it's really, really sad.
Got in a conversation with a customer the other day, and she said she experienced modern day slavery. I said, what do you mean modern day slavery? Because my understanding of modern day slavery is a whole other ballgame, being Caribbean. So I said, explain to me what you mean. She said, well, she was told when she was 16, granted she's in her 40s now, to go to England and pick apples, and she could earn a wage and then finally go home. But when she got there, considering she had borrowed £1,000 to get there, they wouldn't pay her. She had to work. She only got fed once a day, and the accommodation was terrible, and she wasn't really able to contact her family, and they wouldn't pay her on the basis that we're paying for your accommodation and you owe us already. Now, these were actually English companies, agencies that brought her over. These weren't foreign agencies. And she was going on to say that the British government today is still enforcing these things. Now, she's become a lot better for herself, and she's actually a doctor working in the NHS and serving the public today, so I'm really grateful to her. But I did say to her, that sounds like more exploitation than slavery. I asked her some obvious questions like, why didn't you just go home? She said, well, she was young and she didn't know the laws and all these kind of things, and besides, I suggested to her, well, you could stay in a tent and they have to pay you, and then you go and work, and go and work and get your money. And she said, no, well, we did think of that, but if from when we leave the farm, they said, well, you're fired, but we want our money from you. So you're in a rock and a hard place. And I suppose now I think of it, there's some kind of exploitation, or you could say slavery, but at the same time she does have the ability to walk away, because slavery for my bloodline is something where you're told who you can have sex with, your children can be taken from you, sold, your partner can be sold, you can be killed, raped, and all the rest of it, and no accountability. I don't tell you this to say one thing's worse than the other and all these other things, but why I do say this is bring it to your attention that if you do know anybody who's in this kind of position, probably a good idea to help them out, inform the authorities, or just give them some support of whatever you can be, because I don't know anyone like that. But I just thought I'll just let you guys know what is still going on in our country.
Now, children are exposed to education if their parents are wise and healthy, i.e. if their parents are wise men and wise women, children get educated. If they're not, they get indoctrinated. There's a big difference. Our education system teaches people what to think, not how to think. If you study the history of our education system, Ken Wilber goes into this quite deeply if you want a resource. Our education system is still the exact system that was developed by warlords and plantation owners to control slaves. It was developed specifically to keep the kids busy so they could get more works out of the slaves, more hours out of them, and to train the children not to be creative, not to think for themselves, and to follow orders. That is exactly what your education system is today.
Guys, that was it about this video. Remember to give it a like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to turn on the bell as you subscribe. Leave your thoughts kindly. I appreciate your time. Goodbye for now, lovelies. Thank you so much. Bye.